Hi, I'm Kathy Weaver, and I'm going to be reading to you He Hit the Clouds Running and Never Looked Back, basically one section at a time. This book is available if you'd like by contacting me, and I'd be happy to send you a copy. But rather than have you have to purchase it, I offer it free here on my YouTube channel. So I want to read everything, the foreword, the dedication, everything, so you'll have the complete version. Again, this is He Hit the Clouds Running and Never Looked Back. And it's dedicated to all of us who have experienced the death of a loved one and realize that there is always a silver lining. This is a survivor's memoir, the sharing of the experience of death and dying of many of those closest to me, how I survived and thrived, and why I am fine today. I've been told that the first words out of your mouth are your true identifier, so I certainly did not and do not want to be known as the Widow Weaver. That being said, when I first earned that title, I did say it all the time. It made me sad and those who heard it most uncomfortable. But I wanted everyone to know how hard it is to have your life completely turned upside down and how painful it is to have the person who is your true north taken suddenly. Maybe it is sharing the pain, maybe it's easing the pain by speaking some of the occurrences out loud. Whatever the reasons, I once announced my aloneness after 22 years. My aloneness is the very last thing I tell the new people I meet now. Is that growth? Is that healing? Is that moving on? I know not the answers to my questions. I know only that my story must be told. If only one person on this planet is released of the burden of feeling alone, if only one person on this planet is motivated to write, if only one person on this planet becomes closer to God than ever before, then sharing my story as openly as possible will be so worth it. There is always a silver lining. My grandfather, my best friend. And so we begin. I was only 12 when my grandfather died, 1967 for those doing the math. He was my best buddy, the life of any party, and I could not understand how or why a loving God would take someone away from me who made me so happy and was so much fun. At the age of 12, I wasn't even thinking about my mother, whose father had just died, or my grandmother, for whom I was named, who had just earned her widow title. It was all about me and how much I missed him. This was my first big death. The family cried and prayed, and priests came over to my grandmother's house for her traditional Sunday dinners, offering solace and support as best as anyone can. I heard comforting words like, "He's in a better place." What? This place was more than awesome. He's no longer suffering. What? He had ulcers and was not allowed to eat spicy foods or drink beer, both of which he snuck sometimes and paid the price later. And, "Oh, you will see him again someday." That may be a promise and a given, but even back then, I did not find any comfort in these words, as my buddy was not going to be at any family gatherings ever again. He was 65. There is always a silver lining. About the same time, my first dog that I actually remember died too. Frisky was totally mine. We took walks together, and she was always resting on my bed when I was reading and doing my homework. My bed was lots bigger now that she was not in it. There was a really rough couple of months for this preteen. Looking back on these first big deaths, I wonder if this taught me to buck up, stand up straight, smile, and even get over it. Something to ponder. Little did I know what my journey would contain when it came to death and the art form of handling it. There is always a silver lining. So here we go. Love at first sight really can happen. In 1977, the greatest blessing of my life to this point entered my world. I met the man whose last name I still have. Ron Weaver and I fell head over heels in love, love at first sight, every ooey gooey cliche you can think of. He swept me off my feet, and we were married 18 months later after a glorious courtship. Ours was a love that people could actually see. Friends have observed other storybook marriages and have often said, oh yeah, that's Kathy and Ron type marriage. And I know now why they call it that. Ours was a true heart connection relationship made in heaven. We were blessed in 1979 and blessed again in 1983 with flawless children, inserted here in case they ever read their mother's book. And we truly had the perfect life. Mother stayed home with the children, father earned a fine living, children were happy and healthy, engaging in sports and skills and talents. Life was great. My husband was the only child of divorced parents, and his extended family included 9 aunts and uncles, each with their spouses, significant others, and children, and some grandchildren. Ward and June Cleaver would have wanted to be us, let me tell you. Our wonderful life was jolted by the shock of a phone call in November of 1994 from Ron's mother that his cousin had just died unexpectedly. He left work to go home for lunch, but did not return. His coworkers became anxious, went to his house, and found him. Who was asked to be the pallbearer at this funeral? You guessed it, my darling. This was a shake your head kind of death. Apparent fine health, great job, tons of friends. Then an aneurysm. He was 45. There's always a silver lining. Stay tuned for the next section.